Hello and welcome. Today we have a special segment here on 59 Minutes where we take a look back on the economic and political events of this decade, including scandals in the White House and the oil crisis. We're your hosts, Herb
and Betty,
and this is 59 Minutes.
Last March marked the 5th anniversary of the end to the Arab oil embargo. This was an event that triggered an onslaught of economic problems that have plagued our nation to this day. For those who don't remember, the embargo was caused by tension between the U.S. and the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC. The embargo severely limited petroleum production and supply of oil to the U.S., Norway, South Africa, Portugal, and other Israeli allies.
Wow, that's totally not groovy, dude.
I know, right?
Anyway, this embargo caused many problems that I'm sure most of us have felt the effects of even today. The 55-mile-per-hour speed limit nationwide, the reductions in heating oil, and the gas lines were all caused by our growing inavailability to petroleum. Our government worked hard to ease the strain of limited oil with the creations of different organizations like the International Energy Agency and the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
In 1973, Congress approved the creation of the Alaskan Pipeline, which greatly increased the amount of petroleum available to our country. The deciding vote for the pipeline was done by the Vice President at the time, Spiro Agnew. This was one of the more important decisions he made, but he receives the most recognition for being the first Vice President to resign.
The embargo ended after tedious negotiations with the Arab oil countries, but not without sacrifices from both parties. In an address to the nation on November 25, 1973, former President Nixon gives details on the strategies on how to deal with both the embargo and its aftermath. Here's a short clip.
Good evening. 3 weeks ago, I spoke to you about the national energy crisis and our policy for meeting it. Tonight, I want to talk with you again to report on our progress and to announce further steps we must take to carry out our energy policy. When I spoke to you earlier, I indicated that the sudden cutoff of oil from the Middle East had turned the serious energy shortages we expected this winter into a major energy crisis. Nevertheless, we anticipate that our shortages could run as high as 17%. This means that we must immediately take strong, effective countermeasures. In order to minimize disruptions in our economy, I asked on November 7 that all Americans adopt certain energy conservation measures to help meet the challenge of reduced energy supplies. These steps include reductions in home heating, reductions in driving speeds, elimination of unnecessary lighting. And the American people, all of you have responded to this challenge with that spirit of sacrifice which has made this such a great nation. It is now essential that we have mandatory and full compliance with this important step on a nationwide basis. And therefore, the third step will be the establishment of a maximum speed limit for automobiles of 50 miles per hour nationwide as soon as our emergency energy legislation passes the Congress. We expect that this measure will produce a savings of 200,000 barrels of gasoline per day. Intercity buses and heavy-duty trucks, which operate more efficiently at higher speeds and therefore do not use more gasoline, will be permitted to observe a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit.
The early decade was a hard time for many Americans. Stricter safety regulations and less experienced workers in the workforce aided a slump in productivity in the U.S. With a decrease in production, there was a wave of unemployment and growing inflation. The U.S. economy was no longer the dominant producer of consumer electronics, steel, or automobiles because of lack of investment in new machinery. When we come back, scandal in the White House on 59 Minutes.
Mamma mia, that's some species.
Spicy meatballs, Jack. All right. Take 28. Out, Tony, and act.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Cut. The accent.
Huh?
Cut. Cut.
Micey, ballsy, ballsy.
Cut. Take 59.
And action.
Sometimes you eat more than you should. And when
Yeah.
it's spicy besides, Mamma Mia, do you need Alka-Seltzer? Alka-Seltzer can help unstuff you, relieve the acid indigestion, and help make you your old self again.
Mamma mia, that's a spicy meatball.
Cut. Okay. Let's break for lunch.
And we're back, and here to talk about one of the most scandalous scandals in the White House, Watergate.
Scandalous.
On June 17, 1972 at 2:30 in the morning, 5 men were arrested inside the Watergate building in Washington, D.C. for trying to wiretap phones and steal documents in the Democratic National Committee headquarters. Let's watch a quick reenactment.
So realistic. Are you sure that wasn't footage of the real break-in?
Well, I was sure, but now I don't think I can tell. Anyway, after the 5 men were arrested, the FBI started doing immediate investigations into the break-in and who was sent to do it. Eventually, they discovered that one of the burglars was a member of the Committee to Re-elect the President, better known as CREEP. It was found that the man had received a check from the committee right before the time of the burglary. The Committee to Re-elect the President did a lot of questionable acts to ensure Nixon's success. They often took extreme measures to discredit anyone who opposed Nixon, including ordering the murders of those opposers.
After investigators found out about the check to the burglar from CREEP, their suspicions about the White House involvement were confirmed. Continuing investigations discovered that there had been tapes recording all conversations in the Oval Office due to Nixon's want to document his presidency. People obviously wanted the tapes released, but Nixon refused. One of the special prosecutors who had been put on the case, Archibald Cox, was very determined to get Nixon to release the tapes. To avoid having to do this, Nixon ordered his Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General to fire Cox. They refused, and so in protest they resigned, and later that day Cox was fired by another official. This series of resignations and firings was dubbed the Saturday Night Massacre. The Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, and Cox, all leaving at once, made the population very concerned to what was going on. Many people wrote to the White House with their concerns, and the actions of the Saturday Night Massacre started making congressmen consider the impeachment of President Nixon.
After these events, Nixon agreed to release the tapes. The only problem was that when they were released, they were heavily edited. Nixon's swearing was bleeped out along with very long gaps in the tapes. He was eventually forced to release them all with no edits. This revealed what is now called the smoking gun tape, where Nixon admits to using the CIA to divert the FBI investigation so that he could successfully cover up Watergate. Along with Nixon admitting to trying to cover up the scandal, a man named John Dean was also heavily involved with the cover-up and the plans to break into the DNC. John Dean was on the White House counsel to Nixon and eventually got put in jail for his involvement with Watergate.
Here's an excerpt from the infamous tape.
On the investigation, the Democratic break-in thing, we're back in the problem area because the FBI is not under control because Gray doesn't exactly know how to control it. And their investigation is now leading into some productive areas because they've been able to trace the money, not through the money itself, but through the bank, sources, and the banker stuff, and it goes some directions we don't want it to go. For us to have Walters call Pat Gray and just say, stay the hell out of this. This is there's business here we don't want you going any further on. That's not an unusual development. And that would take care of it.
After this tape was revealed, Nixon's impeachment was inevitable. However, before he could be impeached, he resigned. With his resignation, the 25th Amendment would be put to the test only for the second time since its creation. The 25th Amendment states that if a president can no longer be president, the vice president can take over with full presidential power, and that if for some reason there is no vice president, the president can choose a new person to fill that role. In this circumstance, when Nixon resigned, Vice President Gerald Ford took the seat in the Oval Office.
Well, it hasn't been 59 minutes, but I think we've covered everything. How about you, Herb?
I mean, I have nothing else. I don't know what we're gonna do for the rest, but yeah. So I'm just gonna go.